we've got kind of like our basic skeleton here that we can start working with. Let's go ahead and actually like rig this up. So there's a few options for how to do this, but there's one that's probably the quickest. So I'm going to go to the animation tab, and they changed all of the setup of this in my 2016. So actually, I think we're looking at the rigging tab, but in older my entries, I believe it should still be the animation tab. So basically, what I'm going to be looking for is I'm going to be looking for a tool called Interactive Skin Bind. And I'm going to actually just select the Interactive Skin Bind. And what this does is it gives me these kind of capsule shapes that I can use to control the skin deformations of the character. And so the first thing I want to do is I want to actually eliminate that pelvis, or that root. And then I want to go and I want to make sure that I have a fairly decent shape for the pelvis. And I'm going to start by basically you can grab each of these handles, and then usually each of the pieces has like a shift modifier option as well. And you probably won't get these 100% perfect with the capsules, but then you can go in and then you can paint additional deformation details to make sure that they are mostly correct. And so I think I'm going to actually probably reduce the size a little bit of some of these, like these spine joints, so they're not encompassing quite as much as they are here. So, and then I can change the overall shape of that too by holding down the shift key and grabbing. Let's see. And I'm not going to do a perfect job of this here today, because I think it would be. So I'm going to hold down the shift key while grabbing the red section, and that will just allow me to do both red parts at once. And what's cool, and most of the time this will work, sometimes it doesn't, so just keep an eye out. But it should actually make a mirror image of the capsules between the right and the left side. That will usually work out fine. And these shapes are roughly the size of the bones, or the position of the bones. And then you can also, you'll notice that there's a gimbal on the inside for moving them slightly off of that. And you can make it more focused in the area that you need it to be. And then I can hold down to shift, and I can also get it to control a little bit more of the inside. So, okay, so then I'm going to go down, and I'm going to make sure that these are the ones that probably need the most work. I'm going to hold down shift and grab the red bit here. And then basically what my goal is that I want to make this roughly look like it's making the shape of the bone. And that requires, I'm holding down shift and I'm reducing the size of the red pieces here. So this is actually a very similar tool to what 3D Studio Max has as a default offering, and this is something that Max has had for years. Maya only brought it in recently, but I notice that a lot of Maya users still don't really use it because it's like it's not in their comfort zone. But I really strongly advocate it. I think it's a great tool. And I'm just focusing on this one side, and then here, because I have the bones removed for the hand, I'm going to try to get this to control the full hand. And so I'm doing a little bit of rotation using the rotation tool here, and I can move it. And this will be a little bit more complicated when you're using full finger bones. But it's actually, weirdly enough, not that much more complicated. It's pretty good either way. And you'll notice that there's a fall off around these. So the bones are a little bit simpler when they're further away from each other, so it's easier to control. But basically, like, the shape of this rotund end cap is where the fall off is happening. So usually, if it's like encompassing the shape of the bone, it'll work pretty well. And then, just for reference, one of the reasons I use this interactive skin bind is it actually does make fingers insanely easier to map than it would be otherwise, because you basically just make a series of finger joints that are roughly the same shape as the fingers, and then you're really pretty close to done. Whereas if you do the paint skin weights, it requires a huge amount of work just to get it so that the fingers aren't like stretching and pulling the wrong fingers and all that kind of stuff. So I always start with this and then switch to the paint skin weights tool after the fact. Okay, and then I'm not going to worry about the right side right now, so I'm just going to go to the, right now I'm going to go to the thigh, and let's see here, I'm going to hold down Shift and grab the red bit here. Then I'm going to pull the green top down so that it's kind of extending outward. I want to make sure, I think this is pretty close to correct. And then I just want to make sure that I'm capturing as much of the leg as possible. And I can also do a little bit of rotation to try to help that, like if it's not rotating the correct way. Now, you'll notice in this case, as I said before, sometimes the capsules will automatically have symmetry, and that's reflection, basically. And so the good thing, though, is you actually kind of don't have to worry about that, whether or not it is doing it, because there's another way that you can get that kind of result. So I'm gonna, let's see if I can, I'm gonna hold down the Shift key to just extend out a little bit further into the inside of the leg, and then hold down the Shift key, extend that out a little further on the outside. And this won't be perfect, but it'll be pretty close. And then I'll go to my calf, do the same thing. And for some reason, the calf had correct reflection symmetry here. Go figure. So I'm going to hold down the Shift key, move this back a little bit. Hold down the Shift key, move this out a tiny bit. See how far I can go without it bleeding into the other character, or the other section of the leg. And that's actually something that, one of the reasons that this is so useful, is that it's very, very easy to use. And then, so I'm not going to worry about the calf twists. So I'm going to go to the foot. And the foot might be a little bit misleading, but basically the foot is going to not include the ball. And actually, I probably could have done a better job of positioning the ball joint so that it had a little bit more range of motion. But in this tutorial, that'll be okay. It'll serve its purpose. So, and I'm probably going to go in and make some tweaks to this, of course. But let's see. Okay, so I'm going to try to make it so that it's going to hinge roughly where I want it to. And then I'm going to make this so that it's not really including the ball of the toe. So, so then I can go down into the ball here, and just make sure it's including the section of the ball of the foot that I needed to have. And then that should be pretty decent, at least as a first pass of controlling the rotations. So now we need to, ooh, that looks no me gusta. So okay, so then there's a couple of things that we still have to watch out for. And that's in these IK joints, because these IK joints will be trying to grab some of the influence. And then I also noticed that there's a spot on her rear there that is not being captured. So I gotta make sure I'm extending that out and encompassing that as well. So okay, let's find these IKs real quick. And so for the IKs, there's a few ways we can handle this, but I think that the easiest way to handle this is just to make them really, really tiny, so that they don't actually get influenced. And then, or you could also even just move them. So, for example, I can just grab this and just move it out, because ultimately this information is not really going to be directly used to get anything of value into your rigging. It's all about how to move bones based on these bones. So you shouldn't ever have these bones controlling any of the skinning. So I can either just do something more complicated, or I can just like move them out of the way basically. And moving them out of the way will just give me the ability to really kind of have a one-stop shop of just like, okay, I'm not even worrying about this. So yeah. Okay, and you'll notice there's some things that are wrong here on the right side, which is actually probably a good thing, because it gives us something to work with. I also want to make sure there's a little bit of a spot here where the side is having difficulties, so I might want to do something with the spine to make sure that that's getting addressed. Okay, so that'll be good. It's still not it's not stealing from anywhere else, and then we can of course adjust this when we do our weight painting. But actually, it's good that we have this issue with the right hand, because we can see when we've made the correction.